Sorry. Dynastic beast beaver. Notable representatives: Susanna von Estekten, whatever, one of the first female poets to publish the common tongue. Eleanor von, mother of King Radovid IV, known as the Bald. Norbert von Esteken, can't say it, funded the formation of the Faculty of Psychology at Oxford Academy. Von Everich, the dynasty founder, Ratibor von Everich, was knighted by King Vrydank the Elf for feats of exceptional wartime prowess in the Gulf of Perdaxia theatre. Dynastic estate, Oxford region, Von Everich Manor, surrounded by lush gardens famed for incorporating a monumental family crypt. Dynastic beast, wild boar. Notable representatives: Bohumil von Everich, Castellan of Rugveen Castle. Isn't there a beer by that name? A brand, like? Bohumil. I remember referencing Taverncast. Henrietta von Everich, patroness of the artists of Oxenfurt. Constantis von Everich, field hetman of the crown. Recent decades have seen the von Everichs fall upon hard times, their wealth and status having steadily and gravely declined. A coup from the horn of a unicorn, aimed like a mouse with a head of hard cheese. Someone's from Duchess. Noble Houses of Toussaint, volume Sangreal, alternately Sangreal, literally royal blood. The legendary line, which some trace back to the first lords of the lands, now lying in Toussaint and the northern region Harkland. The first mention of Wilhelm the Bold, the line's founder, comes from the Elven manuscripts found during the reconstruction of Beaucaire Palace in 1095. Since this source, like all things Elven, is unreliable and should not be taken into consideration by historians, the existence of House Sangreal must be considered a mere fable. Salvaris, or Salvarez, of the Regalis Platinum Crest. This line takes its name from Salvar the Lame, who was made a count in the year of 1189 by Duchess Cartobert for his service to the ducal crown. The Salvaris line, the Salvaris line's crest depicts a Regalis Platinum, one of the so-called silver basilisks, whose existence is highly suspect. Its classification as a species considered erroneous by most zoologists. We ran into one of those guys. He was trying to save that basilisk. Torcella of the Two Towers Crest, an ancient line whose founders most likely first settled the present-day Toussaint around the year 984. They waged a fierce battle against the elves until the 6th decade of the 11th century, when all of what is now Toussaint fell under human control. You can read ahead for a moment. You know that sound is, in fact, not just a noise, but a wave. Hopefully you can hear me. Just taking a drink. Just like the waves of the sea striking against the shore, and just like them, sound waves strike against everything in their path, which causes them to break. This particular property of sound is used by some species of animals and monsters as they carry out a kind of terrain mapping using their sense of hearing. Bats, which produce a specific sound to conduct echolocation based on how the sound's waves bounce off particular obstacles, make for a good example of this. Curiously, Shelmars, mighty though completely blind monsters, have developed a similar mechanism. They are able to locate their opponents by sensing the vibration of the faintest sound wave. Some monsters are born out of necessity, not because they are cruel, but because they have to defend themselves. For them, it is hunt or be hunted. Others are simply a mistake of nature, beasts brought to life by an evolutionary hiccup, so to speak. But these monsters we are able to fight. However, there are also monsters born of sin. Wherever there is cruelty and envy, wherever the earth has been drenched in blood and rocks soaked in suffering, there the hellhounds made their home. And cruelty spreads, so too shall these monsters. As cruelty spreads, so too shall these monsters. They are the reflection of us, and to defeat them would mean defeat ourselves. All that there is left is to wait until we're torn to shreds by hordes of these demonic dogs. History of the Fortress of Duntoyne, chronicled by Le Papillon. During a visit to the court of the King Nazir, Walterius the Brawny fell madly in love with the king's daughter, the beautiful Hiltgaunt, who was already promised to a prince from Mentina. Walterius, paying no heed to these politically inspired marriage plans, captured the princess's heart and they ran off to Toussaint. Prince from Mentina, unable to let such an affront pass, followed the star-crossed lovers. Yet, Walterius was renowned for his courage and might, thus slew his adversary with ease. And then he and his beloved returned to his family's estate at Duntoyne. To his dismay, it turned out his brother Veslavius had nearly led the estate to bankruptcy, while Walterius had been in Nazir. Walterius threw his brother into the dungeon and, as befits a self-respecting nobleman, embarked on a nightly expedition. Fortunately, his young wife Hilgant, tortured by her solitude, freed Veslavius and became his lover. When Walterius returned and realized he'd been cuckolded, he murdered both of them in a fit of passion and despair. Then he sat down and wept and wept and wept. The Last Basilisk of Its Kind, a study in ecology by Boris de Salveris. Based on my observations, I've concluded all species, be they plant, animal, or even insect, are inextricably entwined with one another. It is no mere coincidence that the felling of beech woods and the vanishing of the roes who in them once dwelled led to the disappearance of the starling basilisks as well. The principle holds true, even holds true for ladybirds. For the betterment of learning, I conducted the following experiment. I eradicated all aphids in the Palace cabbage patch using a lye solution. Within weeks, all of the ladybugs once present in that patch, there were hundreds, migrated to a neighboring field. Simple experiment, yet it gave incontrovertible proof of my hypothesis. The year 781 marked the final end of the elven rule in Toussaint. The closing of an era that had lasted for over 1,500 years. Elves abandoned their ivory cities and left for the mountains, taking with them all that they could and destroying everything else. Whatever they could not and did not manage to demolish or burn, they cursed. The last elven sovereign, Taft, hundreds of years old, yet fair as a youth, was defeated. Weeping over the slain army of his forever young brothers and sisters, he agreed to pay homage to Ludwig, the first human king of Toussaint, who, though young, was shrunken and ugly as night after Sylvain. Putting on no airs and graces, Ludwig boasted, "Look, the proud elf shall bow down before me and kiss my feet with humility." To degrade Taft even further, Ludwig decided homage to paying the elf king's barely abandoned palace. The throne on which Ludwig now boldly lounged bore still smouldering marks from the fire set by the elves, who had sought to burn the whole house down as they left. The proud elven king bowed down before the human king and offered him a sacrifice of bread and wine, as well as his sword and shield. Spewing out merciless mockery all the while, Ludwig received this homage, then immediately ordered his guards to drag Taft beyond the palace gates and throw him down the stairs as if he were a beggar. Witnesses claimed the proud elf remained calm throughout the whole event, but when left alone, Taft wiped the blood off his face and vowed cruel revenge on the king. Revenge will come from stone as cold as the king's heart. Yet these ominous words bore no fruit, for in the year 782, before the homage was renewed, Taft drew his last breath alongside his reigning soldiers, when the Toussainties decided to celebrate the anniversary of the surrender of the elven sovereign with a pogrom of non-humans on the slopes of Mount Gorgon. Few survived. Triton, a letter worker in the year 1023, in one in our lands, that is to say the fair Duchy of Toussaint, the hunting of basilisks has a long and storied tradition, one reaching back to the dawn of our present history. Attesting to this is a note written by one Zaxon of Tryon, a letter worker in the year 1023. In it, one finds mention of a commission for a corset to be fashioned from the hide of that winged serpent, called Basilicus by some. See Fedato Ferry, manuscripts through the ages, 1278. While lesser hides could come from beasts felled by age or hunger, costliness and expensive of this corset would have necessitated the skin of a basilisk taken in its prime, and therefore required a hunt. Without the engagement of a witcher, or as a last resort a knight or mercenary, such a hunt would have perforce meant the gruesome death of the foolhardy hunter. Yet those adapted to the task, witchers chief among them, hunted basilisks and their cousins cockatrices with great success, thinning their numbers till a mere handful remained. To give but one example, in the year 1100, a basilisk of the Regalis platinum subspecies dotted the skies over our lands, yet in present day only one exemplar still lives. Quarreling at the cemetery. Forgotten species. The proto-felder. If you take a felder, magnify all of its most primitive traits, you get a proto-felder. This beast, the felder's distant ancestor, arrived here from a parallel sphere centuries past. It, unlike the felder, has remained untouched by post-conjunction evolutionary processes. In our time, proto-felders are extremely rare, most suitably adapted felders having taken over their niche in our biosphere. Proto-felders are thus lesser vampires. Their massive, wide jaws constitute their main weapons, sharp claws coming in a close second. Similarly to their more developed cousins, proto-felders rely on their instincts rather than intelligence, and are quite sensitive to scent of blood. All the usual means of fighting vampires, such as vampire oil, black blood, and silver weapons, apply to them as well. Alps. Bruxa's dangerous cousins. In the course of my research into Bruxa, I've stumbled upon certain inconsistencies that in no way correspond to what we already know about these dangerous vampires. My investigations have revealed that these seemingly erroneous accounts were in fact describing an Alp, not a Bruxa. It is an incredible discovery, a true milestone in the classification of these monsters. Even though the legends tell of these vampires turning into pitch-black hounds or venomous toads, personally I do not believe an Alp is capable of such polymorphy. However, it is almost certain that similar to a Bruxa, an Alp may transform itself into a beautiful woman. This ability allows the species to blend seamlessly into crowds. Think that I may have passed such a monster completely unawares. Fascinating. One of the fundamental differences between Alps and Bruxa is their fighting style when in the form of vampire. Alps also possess the ability to turn into fog, which allows them to move noiselessly and attack by surprise. Most likely, this is the root of the names common folk have given them, fleetlings. Laradorn and Creganan of Lod. Love knows no bounds, the saying claims. History knows no better proof than of this adage, the romance between Laradorn and Cregan of Lod. She, a powerful elven sage, bearer of the elder blood, promised to the great Avalak. Avalak? Seriously? Huh. So there was an extra layer to the whole affair. And remember the other one claiming Avalak hated Ciri. You know, she was never expanded upon. She just sauntered around and infect off. You know, I have no idea who the hell she is. Remember the elf that taunted Ciri? That's... I don't know. He, a human of human mage of great talent and humble birth. She able to live centuries, if not millennia. He likely to live no more than 60 years and 10, like each of us. They should have hated each other, scorned each other. Instead, they burned for one another with a powerful love. Heedless of the war raging around them, and to the commendations and curses raining down on them from all sides, they led a humble and happy life. Soon Lara was with child. Being a babe born of Lara and Kragan might have joined the best of bow races, unite them at last. Alas, this was not to be. Humans considered Cregan a traitor and a renegade, demanded he abandon Lara, and when he refused, they decided to murder them both. Cregan died while Lara, still heavy with child, escaped her with her life. She ran to Tritigor and begged succor and support from Sero, Queen of Redania. Then what came to pass? Here elven and human sources diverge, representing two irreconcilable versions. According to scholars of the Ancient Shade, our pleas did not soften the stony Dwan hearts, the hearts of the merciless and cruel humans. When Lara, pleading for mercy, if not for her, at least for her child, clutched onto the door of the royal carriage, the Queen ordered her Heya to strike with his sword and cut off her fingers. That night, crushed by a fierce frost, Lara breathed her last sigh on a hill in the woods, having given birth to a daughter whom she protected with the fading embers of her own warmth. Human legends, however, have Sero saying, "Ask me not for grace. Ask instead those whom you have harmed with your magic. Brave you were when you wrought those foul deeds. Brave you be now, when the pursuit of justice nears. Your sins are not in my power to forgive." In reply, Lara said, "My doom is at hand, but yours, Queen, is also nigh. Remember Lara Dorn in that terrible hour, Queen. Remember her death and her curse. Know that my curse will hound you and your seed to the 10th generation. To the 10th generation will it damn your line. Wherein lies the truth cannot be said. Both versions are surely false, for both seek to blacken their enemy. Sad is Lara's end. The hate between races, which Gan wished so badly to end, is now so strong that its darkness has forever obscured the truth of her fate." Which is rather depressing, really. Regeneration potion formula. I do not care. Monster tofu. The history of Est. Est, often considered one of the best chief treasures of the people of Toussaint, is the best known of the wines cultivated in that region. It's hard to determine when exactly the first barrels of Est were matured, though we can surmise it must have been around the time of the first human forays into the duchy's present lands. What is certain is that this wine truly gained fame only during the reign of Duchess Adela Marta, who held Estes in near divine esteem, and for that reason bestowed upon Castel Ravello the privilege of being the official ducal vineyard. She also reserved a special place in the cellars of Beauclair Palace for Estes, and to this day 2 barrels of the vintage are ceremoniously deposited and to this day, 2 barrels of every vintage are ceremoniously deposited on those shelves. Tapping of any of them is by order of the ducal edict, vino sanctus est, punishable by death through dragging behind a team of horses. That's a terrible waste of wine. 2 kegs of it, 2 barrels of it, just left there for eternity to rot. I'll read more later on. Let's... let's have a look at the proto-founders. I also have to read... I have to read all this. The Bestiary, all the characters, and finish whatever lore books I have left over. But I'll get another one done here. Oh, Detlef is an entry. It was horrifying to watch. The gentleman suddenly turned into a ghastly beast, with claws, and tore those men to shreds with the precision of a master butcher, a witness to Detlef's attacks. There was a witness of that quality? Everything before was, vague. Whatever. Detlef is a higher vampire, one of the most terrifying creatures the world has ever known. Some vampires of his sort live among men easily and inconspicuously, sometimes even gaining the respect and admiration of their community. And even the most civilized vampire can be incredibly dangerous if provoked. And Detlef was far from civilized. When in his 2-legged form, Detlef strikes in surprising and unique ways, so one must be extremely alert and attentive. His razor-sharp claws, wielded with great strength and precision, are his chief weapons, as is his element of surprise, as is his comfy chair. Yet he can also wield weapons of human devising with extraordinary skill. Like all higher vampires, Detlef can turn into fog and envelop opponents. When fighting a vampire in this form, one must watch out for magic puddles and attacks from the air. When wounded, Dettlaff attempts to assume his winged form. Using these powerful appendages to stun his foes near effortlessly. One must remember hard vampires are mortal creatures. They still not fear for their lives while fighting, meaning they can take every risk. They will turn invisible and can regenerate strength during combat. All in all, they're extremely difficult foes, even for a witcher. Gotta give it a shake. Clearly, you need to find a way to induce a coma in them and just leave them like that. Can't kill them. At least imprison them like such. Oh wait. That was not a proto. Wish I could just click on that. At least I can drag this. Oh, have to read Garcane's now. Blood on the ceiling, guts on the walls. Must be Garcane. Jan of Van Exter, investigator and captain of the City Watch. Garcanes, like Founders, belong to the class of particularly dangerous vampires whose strength exceeds even that of the fiends. An encounter with one of their numbers almost always ends in death, which is why there are not many eyewitness accounts of them. From City Guard reports written up in Lan Exter, describing attacks committed in the city in 1104 by 3 Garcanes, later killed by a certain Olivier of GotY, Witcher. It seems these horrible monsters do not content themselves with drinking the blood of their victims. The investigators concluded from the blood and guts strewn around the crime scenes that Garcanes tear their victims to shreds with great delight and walk about in their bloody entrails.